Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Total Text Live. I am here with Jeanette Andromeda. She operates off of the Twitter handle HorrorMade, and she is fantastic. How are you today, Jeanette?
Doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
I know. We've been trying to get together and talk for what seems like forever, in between stomach viruses and like asteroid impacts and all sorts of insanity. Here we are. We're finally here. So
did it.
The first thing I wanted to talk about was one of my favorite hashtags on Twitter, something I followed absolutely religiously. The Horror Haikus Day hashtag has just been like one of the central points of my creative life recently. I just really enjoy the work that goes into that. Tell us a little bit about that, how you became involved with it, and yeah, just give us an idea.
Yeah, so the hashtag Horror Haikus Day actually started as a project between me and a poet, Patrick Rahal. And initially it was 2-sentence story Tuesday, which is why this has been cemented in Tuesdays for so long. He had written 2-sentence horror stories, and I was illustrating them so that we can put a book together, which will come out eventually. We're still working on it. But then when we ran out of 2-sentence stories, he had a bunch of horror haikus. I'm like, that's a great idea. I've never seen this before. I need this in my life. So then I brainstormed. I discovered that Haikus Day was a thing on hashtags. So there's hashtag Haikus Day, so Haiku Tuesday. I was like, well, that's a great mashup. So then I just made it hashtag Horror Haikus Day. So apparently I invented it. But I'm really excited that other people enjoy it. I created a hashtag. What's more exciting to me is that there are poets and people who write every single week. They come up with these clever things and they share all of this poetry and these bizarre little twists of fate, and it just makes me so happy.
I can't imagine how awesome it is to know that you've brought so many people together to, you know, celebrate this very awesome mashup. What is it do you think about haiku? Because I remember as a kid in like 6th grade literature class learning about haiku, and it's like, it must be about nature. Like, frog jumps into pond, splash. And, like, what do you think it is about the haiku format that lends so well to horror?
I think because it's kind of playful in general as a form of poetry, because it is so, it's 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. And if you throw out the nature qualification, there's so much you can do in that tiny little span of characters, which worked really well for Twitter, especially before they improved their character limits. I know. We can all rant longer now. But now there's longer form poems coming out, which makes me happy. But I think it just gives it this little impact, because you're forced to have, what's the spookiest moment that could happen? What's the little twist, like nano horror and horror haiku. I'm messing up his name. Hang on one second.
I do that all the time. That's the fun part of live.
It's true. Haiku of horror, in particular. Yeah. Every single week, they'll write something that just genuinely makes me laugh, because it's just messed up and hilarious at the same time. Like, yay! There's people with my branded horror blended humor out there, which makes me happy. We're not alone.
It's funny that you talk about haiku being playful, because I read a lot of Stephen King. I've actually taught Stephen King in my literature classes. And when you look at his work especially, there's something very playful about horror in kind of a weird, twisted, almost sadistic kind of way. Like, I just finished with The Regulators, and it's just really clear that he enjoys torturing those people in that book, like both King and the character. It's really messed up.
I don't know. I think because horror, when you get really deep into it, it's genuinely disturbing. But when it's in such a short amount of time, all you get is the jump scare. So it tends to be more playful, because you can only get that, like, thing.
There's been such a backlash against jump scares lately, too.
Oh, yeah, because they're totally overdone.
I think that you can do them well, but I think the problem is most horror films that do the jump scare thing don't do it very well. And it's like, I remember reading Goosebumps books when I was a kid. And did you ever read those?
I did. I read all of them at some point.
It got to the point where it was like you would come to the end of a chapter and you knew there was going to be something scary.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like it would be so unbelievably formulaic. So real quick, as far as crud, see, now I'm getting confused. You write for the Horror Haikus Day hashtag as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main things I've wanted to point out, though, was the art that you create. Tell us a little bit about the art that you've created and the style that you use.
So Horror Haikus Day has been kind of my playground as far as art goes, because as an artist, I just want to share all the time, but this gives me kind of some ramifications to work within. It needs to be kind of spooky, kind of creepy. Lately, I've been really focusing on trying to keep it grayscale and black and whites so that it kind of has more of a cohesive vibe. When I first got started, it was all digital art. It was my way of practicing digital art. It's just, how the heck do I use a tablet? So it's been my way of practicing, and it's been really cool seeing Haikus Day art from 2 years ago versus like today, and seeing, wow, it doesn't even look like the same artist, which, you know, makes me happy.
One of the things I found interesting about the project is, as a writer, and I'm sure a lot of artists have this kind of conflict as well. We are very encouraged to share a lot of stuff, right? You're supposed to get your name out there, get your work out there, but at the same time, you're also supposed to hold back so that you either can participate in other projects and somehow find payment for it, right? But with a project like this, if you're participating in it by appointment, I think that this is a really, really good kind of, this is a good project to use for self-promotion that kind of organizes it. Have you had any more experiences with self-promotion that have worked really well for you? I mean, I imagine this one's pretty big, but what else have you experienced?
Haikus Day has a special place in my heart because it just feels like a game that I get to play every week with a whole bunch of other people. But I feel like a lot of what I do is self-promotion, even though it's just, I'm that kind of person. I'm like, oh, I made this thing. Look at this thing I made. I mean, look at it. Like, here's a mermaid I did earlier. Oh my God, you know, just here's a terrible banana.
I kind of like the banana. It reminds me of the one from the Rejected cartoons by Don Hertzfeld.
It's a little bit like a Rejected cartoon.
I'd buy it.
But it's yours. But it is, I don't know, because I've gotten into the whole online community in a weird way. I was initially a filmmaker, and that got me and my husband into making a web series, which then got me into blogging, which then got me into all of the many things I do. And what I realized was the difference between being an online content creator and being like a traditional filmmaker type. You are so secretive when you're making movies. You have to sign NDAs. You can't share what the plots are. You can't show pictures. Like, you just drop off the face of the earth for months at a time until you're done, and then the movie comes out, and then you don't care because it's been too long. Whereas the online community, it's so much more of a conversation. So even though I feel like I'm just kind of like, I'm promoting all of my stuff, look at all of my things, it's more sharing. Like, I feel like I'm talking to a group of friends instead of just buy my stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like
so there's the option of, hey, you can buy my prints, but it's also just,
it's like you're sharing the creative process as you're creating.
Repeat that, because it kind of glitched out for a second.
It's like as you're creating, you're actually sharing the creative process.
Yes.
That's a really cool thing too.
Well, and it's also really, one, it's satisfying to see when people like it, but it also helps a lot because I've been able to see, oh, people respond a lot better when I make this style of artwork. So you guys, and you too, David, have been helping me refine my artwork and actually find a style for myself. So it's like, oh, people like this one. All right, cool.
it's so cool to participate in something like this. Like seriously, just to create and like see other people play off of, because that's one of the things that Nano Horror and I have kind of done. We'll have kind of like a conversation in horror haikus. We'll play off of each other, and those are always just absolutely fantastic. I did not know that you were a filmmaker.
Surprise!
I have a question that I've been dying to ask, and I didn't prep you for this, so this one. But what is your favorite? And I'm making an assumption that because you deal with horror, do you have a favorite horror film? I know that's an unfair question to ask.
There's a lot of them. But literally the first one that jumped into my head, and it may be the time of year right now, it's still The Nightmare Before Christmas, actually.
That's a beautiful answer. That's fantastic.
It's horror, but it's beautiful, but it's creepy and playful all at the same time. It's kind of all the things I love. Like early Tim Burton is my favorite horror, still to this day.
And it's so funny because like I'm sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, Tim Burton is horror.
Yeah.
Like, he deals with so many horror tropes and so much horror imagery. Weirdly enough, I haven't been thinking about him in that capacity. I don't know why, but when I first heard that, I was like, is he horror? Yeah, he is. Like, very much so.
But not like slasher, not traditional, what you immediately think of as horror. Like, Nightmare on Elm Street's another favorite. John Carpenter, I don't know what took me so long, and actually watching all of his movies. Don't know. I'm a terrible horror fan. I go off in weird tangents. I'm like, oh, something with claymation. Yes, please. So like Coraline is something I love, even though it's not quite a horror, but it's really disturbing. Those button eyes really freak me out.
Have you seen those La La Loopsy toys?
They're terrifying.
Oh my God. There's some kids that go to my church and they have those La La Loopsies, and I feel like they're looking at me like, we will consume your soul. Like, it's awful.
They feed off the energy of the children carrying them.
And that's what it seems like. Gosh, it's horrible.
Terrifying.
I respect the Tim Burton love, though. That's fantastic. I like when people come up with answers to those questions that don't go right for the the kind of expected. Me, I'm sitting here like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's like,
awesome.
Golly, I love the fact that movie didn't have a lot of gore in it. It was all implied violence, which is something that I just really, really appreciate. Now, you talked about the Haikus Day, or the Horror Haikus Day project. Tell us a little bit more about what you have going on right now. Like, what should we be looking for? What, if people want to explore your work and find more of it, what would you recommend, and where can they go to find it?
So if they want more horror stuff, I'm not sure what I'm doing with my blog right now, other than it's the home for Horror Haikus Day. That's like the one thing that'll never change, because I love making this with everyone.
I'm in the exact same spot.
But I've been getting into a lot of different things. So horrormade.com is where Horror Haikus Day lives. And I've just started up a art YouTube channel, which is, it's a playful way of being creepy and art at the same time. I'm just like, I don't know, let's make a thing. So if you like watching art tutorials and that kind of stuff, then you can find more of my art over there, which is growing, which is exciting. I don't know, Twitter and my blog are the best places to find me. I've been trying to post more on DeviantArt, but I'm terrible about that for whatever reason. I just prefer the conversations that happen on Twitter the best. And Instagram, actually. Instagram, I've been getting some good conversations going. That's more what I want. Is I don't want to just say, hey, good job. I want to see, like, let's talk about something.
Kind of debate it, to like pull it apart, analyze it.
Exactly.
Have you thought about like talking about potential commissions? As an author, I've commissioned some artists before for work that I produce under a pen name. And I've always had really good experiences with that.
Yeah, that's definitely something I need to get on my website, is, hey, you can commission me. Here are prices.
I would definitely put that up because, you know, for the type of stuff I do, this is one of the things that people in business always tell me never to tell a person, but I would be like, can I pay you something for this? Because you would definitely be worth, and weird enough, and we talked about this a little bit before, it almost seems like with a lot of your art would work really, really well for someone who's doing something like a scarier, but playful. I like that kind of mix that you're doing, playful, scary. That is a great aesthetic, and I think it would work really well for some children's literature that experiments with the horror genre. We talked a little bit about the scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yes.
And I think you would work extremely well for that. Have you ever thought about that?
That's like my ideal job. That's what I would love to be doing, is just because horror has such a big spectrum of what is considered horror. And what I enjoy is when it surprises you and makes you laugh. Like Dale and Tucker versus Evil is a great example of what I think is amazing in horror, because it just kind of takes what you think and flips it upside down.
It's Shaun of the Dead. Still one of my favorite movies.
That one's so good. What's another one I was... Oh, brand new one on Netflix, which had me cracking up so hard I was crying, was The Babysitter. That one's so funny. Worth watching.
For me, also, it was Slither.
Oh, that one's been so long since I've watched it. But yes, that one was... it surprised me because I wasn't expecting the tone that came out of it.
It was amazing how well it blended the humor with absolutely repulsive imagery.
Yeah.
I had nightmares about that creature at the end, and when the lady exploded in the barn, I was like, oh my God. It's one of those movies I look forward to. This is going to sound kind of twisted. I have like a collection of movies that I'm looking forward to showing my kids.
Yeah.
And like when they're a little bit older, because I know how traumatizing it will be.
You want to be the one to traumatize them.
And there goes Father of the Year.
Or maybe, you know, Father of the Year is just like you're opening up their opportunities for self-expression. How's that sound?
I've always said that it's important as a father to make sure that they have interesting stuff to talk about in therapy one day.
That's amazing.
That's my philosophy. That's my mantra. Anyway, I think that's about all the time that I have here. You are awesome. And one of the things that I would kind of like to do at some point would be to get together like a panel of authors. And when something happens, like maybe a movie comes out or drama, because I don't know if you know this or not, but on YouTube and on Twitter, there's a tendency for drama.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it would be great to just have like a conversation and like play off of people in particular communities. I'm hoping to have Nano Horror on at some point as well.
Oh my gosh, please.
I know he was being very humble the other day. I was like, dude, no, you are awesome.
Yeah.
Talk to you. So I'm hoping now that we've name dropped him, maybe, you know, he'll be a little bit more like,
hey, Nano, you gotta come talk.
All right. Thank you very much. And I think that'll be it for us today. Anything else you'd like to add here at the end?
That's it. I think everyone should go on Twitter and use #HorrorHaikusDay and write something spooky.
I like the hand gesture.
The hashtag.
I'm stealing that from you.
Go for it.
All right. Thank you very much. And let me, oh, there it is.